Okay, October 27th, Sunday morning. We're up to the letter L. You may have any guesses what L stands for?
Love.
Love, because it's the fruit of the Spirit. Duh.
Loyalty.
Love. And 1 Corinthians 13 is called the love chapter because it's all about love, and it's got some really good stuff in it. So I'm just going to read it out of the New King James Version. It said, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, we'll come back and talk about all these, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my good deeds to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. Love is not puffed up. Does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own. Is not provoked. Thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Bears all things. Believes all things. Hopes all things. Endures all things. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Where there's tongues, they will cease. Where there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, and love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. So, this whole chapter is kind of broken up into like 4 parts, kind of. The first part's talking about, you can have all this stuff, but if you don't have love, what are you? And then it talks about what love is. It's actually, I guess, 3 parts. And then it describes what love does to you. So, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, what's that mean? That means you can talk to anybody. Talk their ear off, whatever.
You can talk to people. And you have spiritual.
You have spiritual gifts of tongues or understandings.
And you have worldly understanding.
Right. So you can, everything. But if you don't have love, then you're like a sounding brass or a clanging cymbals. Anybody ever heard us, somebody hitting the cymbals together without any musical?
Just making noise.
Well,
yeah, just banging them together. Or
it doesn't sound bad as long as they don't drop them on the ground.
Well, no, it's a clanging brass. It's not being played. Not when they're being played in part of music, but when they're just like little kids. Have you ever heard little kids take cymbals and bang them together?
Banging on
pots and pans.
Banging on pots and pans. They're just making noise.
Somebody with the drums, just for whatever. Don't laugh at me. Don't judge me.
So there's no video anymore.
Don't think about coworkers. And though I have the gift of prophecy, and I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. So the gift of prophecy means that you can, you know what's coming. You understand all mysteries means that, it would be kind of nice to understand all mysteries, because then people would say, well, why won't this work? Oh, because of that.
Well,
because of this.
Like the gifts that you're born with. You have those gifts, but...
Well, this is pretty much talking about all the gifts, the spiritual gifts that people have. You understand all mysteries and all knowledge. You can know everything. Has anybody ever known anybody who knew everything? Who was a know-it-all? Anybody? Stop it. Anybody ever knew somebody who thought they were a know-it-all?
Are you looking at someone?
No, you guys don't talk yet.
No.
If you know somebody who's a know-it-all and they don't have love, they don't act with love in the way they present it. Now, I know people who are very intelligent, who know a lot of things, but they're very gentle and loving, and they don't make people feel like they're stupid.
It's almost like they don't boast their intelligence.
That we'll get to that.
They're not embracing.
They're not puffed up. But it says, I can do all that, and though I have all faith. so that I can remove mountains. Jesus said all you have to have is a grain of faith as a grain of mustard seed. That doesn't mean you have to have just a grain of mustard seed amount of faith. It means you have to have the faith that a grain of mustard seed has, that it's going to grow and become a tree. So it's a lot of faith. But you have all faith so that you can remove mountains. But you don't have love, I am nothing. In other words, you can have all this stuff. You can have all the knowledge. You can know everything. Nothing can confuse you. You can understand. You can see what's coming down the road. If you have all of this stuff, but you don't have love, then it's all pointless. It's worthless. Because, well, first of all, what is love?
God.
God is love. That's right. It's a fruit of the Spirit. It's a facet of God. So if you have all this stuff but you don't have God, what's the point? What's it worth? Absolutely nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. You shouldn't be giving things like that to. You shouldn't be giving everything you have to feed the poor, looking for a profit anyway. For it to do some good for you. Although I suppose spiritually is what they're talking about. But you can give away everything you have. You can be generous to beyond default. And though I give my body to be burned, I'm not really sure what that's referring to. I know that that was a cultural thing in Corinthians, but I'm not sure what that exactly was. Maybe it was just a sacrifice. I'll let you sacrifice me instead of somebody else. But I don't have love, it profits me nothing. It was pointless. It was worthless. So if you don't have love, you can have everything else, and it's absolutely worthless. Love suffers long, is kind. Okay, this is where we see two sides. This is an if-then, if you will. Love suffers. What comes out? Kindness. Love's not envious. So it sees other people doing stuff, and if there's love, it's not envious. It rejoices. Love does not parade itself. Look at me. I'm so good. No. Love just says, well, I did, that was done for other people. Yeah.
Wait, clarify, love is not envious. Love is not envious means that you could be in a situation where other people are getting spiritual help, and when you've wanted that spiritual help for a really long time, you can still be happy for them and love them, even though you haven't received it yet.
Well, a perfect example along that line. Mom was telling us when back in the day there was a lot of revelation marriages, meaning that somebody would be praying. Reverend Helms a lot of times would be praying, and he'd say, "Oh, you're supposed to marry so and so. You're called to marry so and so." They may not even know each other, which was kind of scary, but it happened. But that happened with somebody, and my Aunt Sarah was there. And she had wanted to be married. She was in her 30s. She'd wanted to be married for a long time. She really, really did. She may have been late 20s, not 30. I don't know. But she wasn't like a teenager. And she really had been. But this person, God said, this is who you're supposed to marry. And she got so happy for him. She was really happy. She loved him, and she was happy for him. She had that love, and she rejoiced with him and for him, and without looking, she had a desire for herself, but she didn't let that stop her from loving them and rejoicing with them that they had it. And within 24 hours, God had told somebody, this is who you're supposed to marry. And they've been married for going on, what's their anniversary coming up? I don't know. They've been married a long time. Happy. I don't know. I thought that maybe on Facebook you would have seen.
Let's see it on Facebook. What are you talking about?
It's not provoked. Oh wait, no. See here. It does not behave rudely. It's not parade itself. It is not puffed up. Love is not puffed up. What's that mean? What does not puffed up mean? Anybody?
Oh. It doesn't boast. Like I said a minute ago, it's not boastful. It doesn't. You can't take pride in love.
Doesn't parade itself. Oh, pride and love. Yeah, pride and love don't necessarily go together, do they? Because if you're prideful, you have a hard time loving people. Now you can be proud of someone as in a good way, but I'm talking about pride is not a good thing. Does not behave rudely. It doesn't seek its own, and it's not provoked. And it thinks no evil. Wow, that's a big one. It usually hits us all. So if you have love in your heart, if you have God in your heart, if you've got love, then you don't behave rudely. It's rudely. Lots of things are rude.
I'm trying to. The thing is, how can you determine what is rudely though? Because with a different, it's. I guess it has to be your own personal, feeling about the matter. I guess because
it's not situational ethics.
I mean, because what is rude though? I mean, different.
You know if you're doing something and it's rude.
But with different people, in front of
different people have different perspectives. You think different.
Go to the point where you're not supposed to do something that would make someone else feel like they would sin or something like that. For instance, alcohol. Is it rude? You know how it's rude to drink alcohol and someone who doesn't believe in drinking alcohol. Could that mean that or does it mean what you say or what?
I mean, that's
could be, but people know. I mean, if you're acting rudely.
If you feel like you're acting rude, I think that's what it means. If you know within your heart that you're doing something bad and you're making somebody feel bad.
It doesn't say love never makes mistakes. It says love doesn't parade itself.
Purposely.
It doesn't behave rudely. It doesn't seek its own. What's that mean?
It doesn't have any vested self-interest.
Vested self-interest. It doesn't look at a situation and say, if I do this, then that'll work out for me. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Because love doesn't do that. Love says, well, how can I help them to have what they need? Now, I'll be real honest. If you're in a situation with other people, particularly coworkers or students even in a class or whatever, and you are really looking to see how you can help other people, it will help you. Because if your coworkers are doing well, then it's easier. Life's easier. It really is. Because if they're happy, then there's not as many squeaky wheels. So, I mean, it's not saying that love doesn't ever do things that are going to make it easier on itself. It just doesn't do that as a goal. It's not looking for its own glorification. It's looking to help other people. It's not provoked. That's a big one, because how many of us have been provoked in the last 24 hours? In the last 5 hours? Last 2 hours?
I was asleep for the past 5 hours.
How many of us have been provoked in, any time that we can remember? Lots of times. We've all been provoked. Whether it was intentional or unintentional. But see, it says that love doesn't provoke, but also love isn't provoked. So it's a two-way street. If you've got love, you're going to do your best to not try to provoke other people. What's provoke mean? Pro is in the direction of, and voke, I don't know. What's the definition of the word provoke?
Stir them up negatively.
Anger, upset, cause problems, push buttons. Ooh, pushing buttons. Nobody in this area pushes buttons.
Maliciously. We don't do it maliciously.
Does it say it doesn't provoke maliciously, or does it say it doesn't provoke? Love does not provoke. It doesn't push buttons.
Sarcastically.
Yeah, sarcasm isn't necessarily love, unfortunately. I have to deal with sarcasm. I understand.
You know when you've gone too far.
And instead of apologizing, love says, "Oh, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. I'm done now. I'm sorry." And love also says, "Oh, yeah, you provoked me. It's on." No, it doesn't say it's on. It says, "All right, okay, I'm done. I don't want to be provoked. I accept your apology." Okay. Love thinks no evil. Oh. How often have we looked at somebody and gone, "Ugh, how do they ever do their job?" It's thinking evil. That's not a good thing. Or, how can they stand to walk around dressed like that? Or, what are they thinking?
Or, how did they even pass the 6th grade?
How can they teach? How can they think they can teach? How is it that they have that job and I don't? Because they're clueless. I mean, it's easy to think that. Real easy. But, love doesn't think evil. Makes sense. God is love. So does God think evil thoughts? No. It's a good thing.
He thought about smiting all the Israelites.
That wasn't evil. That was righteous.
Not evil, but
That wasn't pleasant, but it was righteous. It was righteousness on his part. But he said, fortunately, Moses had some love.
It says, leave the grease on the pan just a little bit longer. It'll be fine.
No, Moses said, "You promised, God." Shook his finger at it. Okay. It does not rejoice in iniquity. What does that mean?
Iniquity.
Sometimes that means...
What is iniquity?
Yeah, what is iniquity?
Is that like wealth or
Debauchery,
Nastiness.
nastiness.
Oh.
Sometimes it's looked at as old-fashioned values.
Iniquity? Old-fashioned value.
Sometimes old-fashioned values are what define iniquity. They're old-fashioned values. Not antiquity. Not antiquity. Iniquity.
It doesn't what in iniquity though?
It doesn't rejoice in iniquity.
so it doesn't.
It doesn't look at it and say,
old-fashionedness
"Hey,
is
that's
bad."
cool." Iniquity is immoral or grossly unfair behavior.
Yeah.
So-
Old-fashionedness is unfair.
And so, a lot of times we say, we'll look at something that's immoral and go, "Oh, that's all right. It's okay for them." Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't judge. It doesn't say you can't do that because blah, blah, blah. But it does say, I'm not going to look at that and rejoice in it. I'm not going to take pleasure in that. What, Jesse?
I was going to say, is it kind of the same thing as like inequality?
No.
Because you could have the same attitude and have both iniquity and inequality.
Well, maybe it's immoral. What's immoral? Immoral means it's something that goes against moral values. And morals are taught by your family. Social morals are not necessarily social morals. Social mores are not necessarily morals. Morals come through learning from your family. And not always just from that, because some people have family members that are amoral, but they're still moral people. There's some people that grow up in amoral, which means without morals, conditions, and yet they're moral. So how does that work? I think God does a lot of that. Because the way God creates us and He saves us, He says, "Yeah, I'm going to take out that old heart that's amoral and put in this moral one. Because it's going to walk with me. It's got to be moral. It has to know that you can't do these sort of things." So, but we have to remember, in grossly unfair behavior, we've all seen unfair behavior. Grossly unfair means everybody's just going.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of times situations, people go, well, whatever. And they'll stop it. Which is kind of bad. Anyway, it says it doesn't rejoice in iniquity, but it rejoices in truth. Does the truth always easy? No.
Mm-hmm.
Is the truth always fun? No. Is the truth always kind? No. But love rejoices in truth regardless. Sometimes truth is easy. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's, truth falls across the spectrum. It's not necessarily what we want to hear, though. But love says, I would rather hear the truth.
And sometimes,
I want the truth.
even though it's hard, the truth is hard, you get peace from it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a difficult thing, when you see it, you just have peace about it.
Right. And so, love rejoices in truth. It means it looks at it and goes, yeah, I would rather know the truth about this situation than to be deceived. Because sometimes when you're deceived, you're just like going along in la la land, la 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 la, and everything seems okay. And then all of a sudden you see the truth and you're like, whoa.
Sometimes
I was in iniquity and didn't know it.
it's a relief sometimes to see the truth, even if it's a difficult thing. I don't know.
Now I'll tell you, God, there are even people in the world that I know that are in delusional states of being deceived. And yet they still know there's something not right. Because they know something's not true. And a lot of them they think they're insane because they can't figure it out. They need God. When you have God in your heart, you have love in your heart, then you got a bonus. You've got an advantage. Because God will tell you, whoa, that's not right. Whoa, that's not fair. Whoa, that's not okay. Now, life isn't always fair, that's true. But you don't have to rejoice in the unfairness of it. Love doesn't rejoice in it. Rejoices in the truth. Bears all things. Believes all things. Hopes all things. Endures all things. That says a lot. Love's a rock. It's a foundation. It can bear everything. You can put stuff on love. If you build stuff on love, it's going to make it. People say, well, love's not enough. Well, no, love is enough. Now, you may need money to survive, but love goes on. It bears all things. It hopes all things. See, love will look at somebody and go, oh, they're not really where they need to be. I'm not judging them, but I hope that someday they'll be where they need to be. I hope that they can hear. I hope that they can get to a point where they're not stuck in iniquity anymore. I hope that they can come out of this delusional state they're in and see the truth, even if it hurts. That's what love does. It hopes all things. It believes all things. Love says, I believe in you. See, that's the thing. If you're telling somebody you're just hopeless, yeah, I hope you make it out of this, but I don't think there's any hope for you. That's not really hope. That's not love. But love says, listen, I believe in you. I believe that you can do it. You can make it. You can overcome this. You can do it. I believe in you. And I hope that it'll be soon. For all our sakes. Whatever that is. See, that's where love comes in. Because it believes all things. And it endures all things. Have you ever heard of little kids looking at their parents and go, I hate you? I don't have any idea where that comes from. I mean, I've heard little kids say it that It makes no sense. But their parents, if they love them, really love them, they endure that. They go, we don't talk that way. That's not the right way to talk. That's not how you should be.
That's mean.
That's mean. I hate you anyway. Whack! What was that? I hate you. Whack! What was that? I love you.
What are you talking
Okay, you can't really do that, but that's how it seems. That may not be love doing that. Although maybe it is. Sometimes hard love's not easy. Tough love. But love endures all things. See, there's nothing that can... If you have love in your heart for someone, and it's real, honest to goodness love, then there's nothing that can happen that can take that love away from you. If it's true love, no. If you really have love in your heart, it's going to endure everything. Now, that's not to say that there can't be hurts or there can't be pain and it can't, but that kind of implies that. Because enduring means it's going through something rough. I mean, just sitting there isn't enduring. Enduring means it's getting beat on. It's getting tested. It's getting tried. But it, shrugs it off. That's enduring. Endurance is when you can keep doing what you got to do, no matter what. So that's the difference between, true love or love and not having love and just trying to do stuff for yourself. But see, love does that. Love will endure. Whereas if there's not love, it's, fake love or false love or whatever is not going to endure. Because it'll go, I'm out of here. I give up on this. This is whack. Gone. Not doing that. No more. You're nuts. Forget you. Whatever. But true love endures all things. See, love never fails. Never. Where there's prophecies, they'll fail because prophecy by its very nature isn't necessarily set in stone. It's not necessarily enduring. It's not necessarily accurate because people change. People can make changes. See, prophecy, God sent prophets to places saying, God's going to send down Brent fire. Look at Jonah. He sent Jonah to Nineveh saying, God's going to destroy y'all because you're such awful sinners. And they're like, God forgive us, we're sorry. I mean, they had a little bit of motivation because the dude had been in the belly of a fish for 3 days and smelled like it and looked, kind of all washed out and scary looking. So they thought he was like a dead man walking around saying, repent, or this is what's going to happen to you. And they're like, no, God, we're sorry. But they really repented. But see, that prophecy didn't come pass. See, prophecies will fail. But love never fails. Whether there's tongues, they'll cease. People will stop talking eventually. They will eventually. People talk about stuff, blah, 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 blah. Eventually it stops. But love never stops. Whether there's knowledge, it'll vanish away. Believe me. Sometimes you know something and then all of a sudden it's just poof, gone. And as you get older, that happens more. Sometimes you know somebody's name. You're like, yeah, that's... and it's just gone. Knowledge just can vanish away just like that. Knowledge isn't something that's enduring. To be honest, knowledge isn't even something that should endure. Because, if you look somewhere, I think we have... Well, Riley's got a set of dictionaries. Encyclopedias, excuse me, not dictionaries. What year is this from? In the 70s or 80s? Okay, well, if you go through those encyclopedias, there's stuff in there that just flat out isn't true. But they were absolutely 100% sure it was true. It was knowledge. But now, there's been advances, and we look at that and go, yeah, they're right. You look back at the time of Galileo, and everybody said, well, the sun obviously rotates around the Earth. They had, written papers, and, it was just common knowledge that the moon went around the Earth and the sun went around the Earth further out from that. The Earth was the center. Of course, we know that's not true. But they didn't know it then. See, knowledge changes. Knowledge isn't enduring. Knowledge doesn't continue. Now, the same love that holds the Earth up, that same love that holds the moon in orbit, and the Earth orbiting around the sun, and the sun going through the galaxy, or the galaxy we're in, and the galaxy going through the cosmos, that love never changes. See, that's God. Let's see here. Vanished way. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. We may think we know everything there is to know about something, but there's always something we don't know. And when somebody's prophesying, they prophesy according to what God tells them, but that's only part of the picture. It's only part of the story. So because of that, it's only partial. It's going to change. It's going to be non-enduring, if you will. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part will be done away. See, if there's a prophecy that, I don't know, what's a good example? Or knowledge. The sun. Well, back to the Earth. The sun rotating around the Earth. We still don't know exactly how all of the galaxy fits together. But say when Jesus comes, or when we go to heaven, or we go to the kingdom of heaven, and we say, God, how exactly does all this stuff work? He'll be able to just show us like that. Then we'll know. Because we'll have the perfection of that knowledge. That which is perfect. The partial knowledge of how we think it works, but 10 years from now might change, or 10 years after that might change, or 10 minutes from now might change. That stuff just kind of goes away. See, knowledge isn't always perfect. It's in part, even if we think we know everything. In general, probably a really good rule, if you think you know it all, you don't. If you think you know everything there is to know about something, chances are you're clueless.
There's always a bigger fish.
I can promise you that the people who planted peanuts before George Washington Carver thought that they were an okay treat, mostly just an annoyance because they, were a pain. They didn't know that they would help the soil after cotton had been planted so that it would have nutrients in it again. They didn't know that you can make 300 different products out of peanuts. That you can make an entire meal that looked like steak and potatoes and vegetables and all this stuff and bread and everything all out of peanuts. God did. There was probably more about the peanut that George Washington Carver didn't know or didn't tell people about. In fact, I know there was. There was stuff he didn't tell people about. So the peanut had so many, and that's just a little peanut. What?
I'm sure there's some negative things you could do with it.
There were probably some negative things you could do with it. I'm sure he probably realized that, but he was like, well, we're not going to talk about those. Build a nuke. Extract poison that kills people. Because some people are allergic to peanuts anyway, so I'm sure that attribute could be extrapolated. But anyway. But when that which is perfect... Okay, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. When you're young, when you're immature, has anybody ever known somebody younger than you? So you're looking back and saying, I remember when I was that age, and yeah, I thought that too. You look at that and you're, oh yeah, I remember thinking like that. Oh boy, are they going to get their eyes opened? And have you ever tried to tell them that? Yeah, I used to think that way, but then I found out, and they're like, yeah, right. Whatever. You can't necessarily... Somebody who's a child thinks as a child. You can't convince a child that the picture that they have in their mind is not how it is. Now, they'll listen. They may listen, and they'll learn. But when they're looking at it, that's how it is. And until they actually see empirically that it's different. They spoke as a child. You know, do children ever say things that don't quite make sense? Do they ever mix stuff up? You know, they ever get their wires crossed and say things that everybody's laughing at? Yeah, it happens a lot. And it's not their fault. It's not that they're wrong. It's not that they're stupid. It's just they're children. It happens. They understand as a child. I thought as a child. The brain physically isn't mature until you're about 25 years old. For males, about 23 for females. It's physically not mature. Still got stuff connecting and ganglions. So children, their brain is still forming connections, and so the thoughts aren't necessarily lucid. I mean, some children are very intelligent. I'm not saying that. And some of them, you know, they'll say things that they'll make leaps that are connections. You just look at them and go, how'd you know that? But that's because their brain isn't necessarily set. It's always changing. It's still changing. They think as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Now, what was most important when you were a little kid? Was working and making money important?
Staying away from quicksand.
Staying away from quicksand. That was important. Not that you were ever around quicksand, but okay.
What's when you're a little kid, quicksand's like the biggest thing in the world. You're like, it's going to be such a problem.
You really do.
Yeah?
Think about it.
You're like,
Think about all those distant
what would I
things,
do if I
like,
fell in quicksand?
What do I
Things
do
will
if that
never
happened?
happen.
Like,
Yeah.
It's mainly according to the situation you're in, because my importance was different than most kids' importance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But there were things that you thought were important, and to be honest, they were important.
mm.
But if looking back, there may have been things that seemed like they were real important to you, that there might have been something else that was more important.
Mm.
But from your perspective, that was what seemed important. And see, that's what happens. Little kids see the world through their perspective, and they're like, this is what's important. But when you grow up, all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't quite as important as this.
well, part of it is that when you're a kid, you don't know the world's as big as the world is. Basically, I mean, you can understand, like, oh, there's a map, you know, that sort of thing. But I mean, like, your perspective is like this general area where you go your day, you know, throughout the week, you know, that sort of thing. You don't really realize how big everything is, you know, how
Right.
Mm-hmm.
much of everything else there is, you know.
That's true. Say I put away childish things. For now, we see in a mirror dimly. Now, what's that mean? At the time that this was written, they didn't have, you know, if we have a mirror, it's made with, you know, polished, smooth glass, and it's got that reflective stuff on the back of it. It's not even mercury anymore. It used to be mercury, but now it's whatever it is. And, you know, the reflection is almost perfect. I mean, you can't make a camera without a good mirror. You know, a mirror that's, you know, crystal clear and takes pictures that are absolutely right on. See, that's what a mirror is now. But at the time Paul wrote this, a mirror was a piece of metal that was polished. Now, you can take a piece of metal and if you spend a lot of time on it, you can polish it down so you can see, it can be almost a perfect mirror. Almost. And the finer the grade and the quality of the metal, the better the reflection will be. But if you ever seen shiny tin, you know, you can kind of see yourself in it. What?
Kind of like aluminum foil.
Or, yeah, aluminum foil, you can kind of see yourself in it. It's kind of a mirror, but it's not real clear, right? You look at that, and that's kind of how the mirrors that Paul was talking about here was, because it's like that's not. I don't know, you see kind of the vague shape of things, but then he says now face to face, or then face to face. So is it more clear to look at somebody's reflection in a shiny piece of metal, or to turn around and look at them face to face? Which one's going to be clearer?
Looking at them face to face.
Usually looking at them face to face. Unless you just have really bad astigmatism.
Unless you're
Well,
the person in the mirror.
Then it would blur you both ways.
If you're too close, I can't see you very well.
Yeah.
Same as too far away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Riley said unless you're the person in the mirror, then you can't turn around and look at yourself. That'd be a neat trick. That'd be a neat trick if you could. But dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, just as I also am known. How does God know us?
He's inside of us.
Let me rephrase that. What doesn't God know about us?
Nothing.
So he knows everything about us. So we're known completely. So then we will also know completely. We'll have complete knowledge. It won't be partial knowledge. It won't be knowledge that can pass away. It'll be full knowledge. And it's because of love. See, when we have love, all of these things happen. If we are really in God, if we're in Him, if we're in Christ, we've been washed, been forgiven of our sins, we've sanctified, buried and raised in Him, and we're under the blood, we're in Him, and we're in that love that's God. And we are love. We aren't love, but God is love. So through us, we can present that love if we're inside of Him. It's kind of like if I stick a glass down into a bucket of water, the glass didn't produce the water, but it can be full of water because it's in there. And as long as it stays in that bucket, I can turn it upside down, right side up, and it's still going to be full of water, no matter what. And that's where we need to be. Is we need to be inside there where we're always full of water, full of love. It says, after all this, it says, now abide faith, which is a fruit of the Spirit, right? Hope, which is a fruit of the Spirit, and love. These three. But the greatest of these is love. Now, why is that the greatest of these? Because love hopes all things. Hope is the substance, or faith is the substance of things hoped for. So without hope, you can't have faith. But without love, you can't have hope. If there's no love at all, there is no hope. If there's no love in a situation or for a person, then that situation is hopeless. And if there's no hope, there's no faith that it can change. On the other hand, if there is love, if you have love, if you've got that godly love in you, then you can look at a situation and say, there's still hope for this. And I have faith that it can change. Everybody else might look at you and go, you're crazy. But you say, no. I know that there's hope here. Because I have love in my heart for this person. And that this can change. And I have faith that this situation will change. So that's why love is the greatest of those. Because it's the root. It's the base. It's what has to endure. It has to hold up everything else. Okay? Does that make sense? Any other feedback? Thoughts? Questions? Ideas? Possibilities? Blank stares? Oh, the blank stares.
One thing I thought about earlier, I don't really know how this fits. I just thought about it. It might not really fit, but sometimes we feel like it's okay to do something. Like we're, I don't know what. I don't even know I'm not thinking of anything specific. I'm just thinking sometimes we might feel like something's okay for us to do. And, we do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think that much about it. It's just okay. And then one day God might check us and say, don't do that this time.
Right. Not even that he's saying don't do it ever again. He's just saying stop.
Don't do it this time.
Yeah.
And we just need to listen for that.
We do. And love listens for
we
that.
We need to be sensitive because it could have something to do with another person.
It could be.
But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
I just felt like I needed
There's
to
lots of
share
times when that happens because there's times when we think, well, there's something God hasn't convicted you of or doesn't, it's like this isn't really an issue one way or another. But there's times when God might say, no, not right now. Just like sometimes when you ask your parents, can I go to so-and-so's house? Sure. Can I go to so-and-so's house? Sure. Can I go to so-and-so's house? No. Well, why? Why do kids never ask, well, why when you say sure you can? When you give them the answer they want to hear.
There's no reason to.
Well, why is there a reason to when somebody says no?
Because they're curious why they can. Like,
Why would you be curious if you're allowed to do
Because
something?
I've always
Yeah.
been allowed
There's no
to do
reason.
it every
I know.
There's no
time.
reason to be curious on why you can do something. I mean, it's just kind of.
Because you've always been allowed to do it, and then all of a sudden you can't do it. But sometimes God does that.
Sometimes God does that.
And I don't know, maybe somebody's going to be in a situation like that.
And there may not even be a
This
reason
week.
why that you can't ask why. But sometimes the answer is, I don't know, I just don't think you should. Accept that. Sometimes God doesn't tell us why. So just accept that. Be willing to just accept that. Because sometimes it doesn't seem like there's a good reason.
And be sensitive to, God speaking to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's good. Any other insights on that? Okay. Jesus, we thank you and praise you and bless you. We lift up your holy name. You're worthy of all praise and glory and honor. Lord, thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your deliverance. Jesus, thank you for your love. Thank you that we can have that love. We can have the fruit of the Spirit love in us. And then all of those things in Corinthians 13 make sense. They all fit in. They all apply. So, Jesus, I thank you and praise you and bless you. I lift up your holy name. I pray you help us to have your love in us at all times so that when we speak, we don't sound like a clanging cymbal, but we sound like something wonderful to listen to. Lord, that when we do things for other people, we're not doing it for ourselves, but we're doing it truly out of love. So, Lord, I just pray you help us in all these areas. We thank you, we bless you, we lift up your holy name. You're worthy of praise and glory and honor. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your help. Jesus, I pray you help all those who need your assistance, all those who need your love, all those who need your clarity. Jesus, we want to lift your name so that you can draw all men to you. You said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men to me. So, Jesus, we lift you up right now so that everybody in this area, Lord, everybody in a few miles around here or even further, Lord, everybody who hears this can look to you and say, yes, Lord, and be drawn to you, Lord. We all want to be drawn closer to you. So, Jesus, I pray you'll help us in all areas. Thank you for your mercy and your kindness. Praise your holy name. Amen.
Mm.